what are some estate planning considerations for blended families? This is a very, very good question. And of course, in 2024, we have more blended families than ever. Estate planning considerations for blended families. It's very, very important for you to understand that some of the people who you consider to be a part of your family may not be a part of they may not be in the list of people who would inherit from your estate if you do not have a plan. For example, if you have stepchildren, you don't have a plan, and you want assets to be distributed to your spouse and possibly all of your children, including your stepchildren, you may be leaving those stepchildren out because they're not your direct heirs, and therefore the laws of intestacy would not apply to them. The reverse is that you may only want to leave assets to certain children and not others. You may not want to leave anything to certain children at all. You may not want them to be a part of your plan. And if you don't have the right estate plan in place, there's no guarantee that your assets will be distributed the way you want them to be. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is that if you have, for example, children from multiple relationships and you're wanting all of your assets to go to your spouse, it's important to understand that after you're gone, no matter what type of conversation you had with your spouse prior to, doesn't necessarily mean that it has to go that way. What do I mean by that? If I'm married to someone, I have my 2 children from a prior marriage, and they have 2 children from a prior marriage also. And I decide that I'm going to leave my entire estate now to my spouse. But we've had this conversation where I say, hey, when I'm gone, you make sure that you split everything 4 ways between my 2 and your 2. Well, when I'm gone, my 2 is not technically part of that spouse's estate because that's not their child. So they could technically leave it only to their 2, and there's nothing I could do about it. So blended families need to have even more conversations, I would say, than normal families. I don't want to say normal families, but even more conversations than more traditional families, because we have all of these nuances that wouldn't necessarily happen if we're just talking about 2 spouses with 2 children that belongs to the both of them. We want to make sure that we're not disinheriting our own children inadvertently, or that we're not failing to leave something for stepchildren when we consider them to be our own children. So having an estate plan is very, 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 very important for a blended family, because the laws of the state will not take into account what other family members you've essentially adopted, not legally adopted, but that you've essentially adopted through marriage. They won't get the same treatment as your natural born heirs. So very, very, very important for blended families to have a plan in place.